Thank you very much for a very interesting and quite knowledgeable, I must say, talk. You haven't mentioned, of course, the role of the royal family. One rumour is that the Queen is very much behind the yellow shirts. Another is that the King is too old and sick to take any particular view on the whole thing, let alone have the reds and the yellows come crawling to him in the palace. A third problem seems to be his successor. Is it going to be the most unpopular crown prince, or is it going to be his sister? But it seems to me that there's a fundamental schism here, which might take us back to 1932. Is the royal family going to have much influence in future? Are its supporters going to create a situation that becomes a dictatorship? Could you comment on this?
Well, thank you, Richard. It's the question that I knew in one sense or another would be bowled up to me, and I haven't even now decided quite how to answer it. The fate of poor Harry Nicolaides, who was locked up for over a year for his comments in a self-published novel that sold 6 copies, that was thought to reflect on the Crown Prince, does hang over anyone who talks about the Thai royal family. I'll take as my text what was said by the Thai foreign minister in the United States in April, when he said there ought to be an opportunity to talk about the monarchy. And it's worth noting that the monarchy is talked about the whole time in Thailand. It is a constant topic of either thoughtful comment or gossip. These draconian measures of lèse-majesté may apply to public utterances. They certainly don't apply to the way in which the monarchy is constantly discussed. And indeed, it's interesting that as recently as January 2008, there was a Thai Studies conference held at Thammasat University in Bangkok, where the issue of the monarchy was discussed in academic terms, the issue of lèse-majesté was discussed, and the issue of whether or not Paul Hadley's book, The King Never Smiles, should have been banned in Thailand. The conclusion that I would draw from everything that I know is that you can discuss the monarchy in abstract. It becomes an issue when you discuss the monarchy in the person of King Bhumibol, or possibly in the person of Prince, the Crown Prince, goodness me, the name has suddenly slipped. It will come back to me. The easiest of the questions you asked to answer, Tharijarapong, the easiest of the questions you posed to answer, Richard, is who will succeed the present king? And it will be the Crown Prince. And indeed, in a letter to the Sydney Morning Herald by the Thai ambassador to Australia in response to Peter Harcher's article, pointed out that this is a settled issue. There's been a misunderstanding in relation to the status of Princess Sirindorn, because she was raised to a status within the Thai court's scheme of things, which nobody has found a better term to translate it than Crown Princess. But it does not mean that she is also heir presumptive. She is widely loved at a time when, I think perhaps the best way to put it, within broad Thai society there are some doubts about the personality of the Crown Prince. On the question of whether or not the king was in a position or has been in a position to intervene in the present crisis, the recent crisis, I believe I'm correct in saying that he made a statement the day before yesterday, which was the first statement, apart from a statement he made urging judges to be fair in April, the first statement he has made since April of any kind publicly. There is no doubt that he is very ill. He has been in hospital for the period since September of last year. And when he came for the parade that took place at the beginning of May on Coronation Day, certainly as he appeared in television, he was a very frail person. But I'm not in a position to comment on his health beyond it. Are the Thai population still venerating their king? I would have to say a very large proportion undoubtedly are. The unanswerable question is, are they venerating that king or the monarchy, and what is their attitude once the present king is no longer there? That shouldn't, after all, be too much of a surprise to Australians when we so often say, well, we'll maintain our link with the British throne so long as the present Queen is on the throne. It's perfectly okay to say that in Australia. I would guess, and it has to be a guess informed only by my limited number of Thai friends that I've spoken to in recent weeks, that probably the majority of the red shirts do venerate the king, but they do not venerate what they see as the network that is associated with him.
Archie Law from ActionAid. The question I'd have is on the way out, if you like, because I suppose a key feature of the settlement was an election. And when might that election be? Should it be sooner or should it be later? Whereas there seems to be an increasing body of thought, not necessarily amongst the international diplomatic community, that elections actually sharpen division rather than bring any sense of unity in similar situations. And that the features of democracy, such as strong institutions, the rule of law, social inclusion, if they're absent, an election isn't actually going to, I suppose, enhance democracy. I'd just be interested in hearing your thoughts on way out and where an election might feature in all of that.
I think the point of departure is a widely held assumption that if an election were to be held now, that parties, and parties in Thailand are very fluid, that parties would be returned to power in the Thai parliament that would favour, if not a return to Thaksin, but a return to Thaksin's policies. And because of the limited amount of time, I didn't dwell on the two great features of what Thaksin did for the people who felt they were undervalued and underrepresented in Thai society, the implementation of the 30 baht, a bit more than $1 payment for medical attention, which was then open to everyone, and the gift of $1 million to each Thai village to be used as essentially as a rural bank. These were enormously important and widely welcomed developments during the Thaksin, two periods of Thaksin being Prime Minister. Leaving aside all of the other awful things he did, including the way in which he tried to handle the problems of southern Thailand. Those are great strikes against him, at least in my judgment. Would elections solve the problem? First of all, the offer made by Prime Minister Abhisit of an election in November had to be put against the fact that he said the Parliament would remain in office until September of this year. Now, September is a vital year in Thai politics because it is the month when army rotations occur, when new senior commands are designated. And from the Red Shirts' point of view, they weren't at all sure that they would see any control over who or who might not be appointed to key military positions in September 2010. And this comes back to the question of the army and politics. And the key point is that ever since 1932, the army has believed it has the right to be the final arbiter of politics in Thailand. We know for a fact that 6 months before the coup that took place in September 2006, the army was planning for that coup. We also know in very immediate terms that one of the reasons why Abhisit did not try to commit the army to action in the events of March, April, May, was because the army commander-in-chief, General Anupong, was opposed to it. The army is critical, so that if the elections were held, as was at one point likely in November of this year, or when they have to be held, which I believe is in November of next year, that's not necessarily the end of the story, because the army stands ready to change matters if they do not agree with the result that takes place or the policies that are followed after a new parliament is brought into being.
Thank you. Tamerlane Beasley. I'm curious particularly about the international community and the way the Thai government and Bangkok Thai business community engage, particularly the anger that's been a result of the way Thailand's been covered in the media. There's been, among Thai networks internationally, there's actually been a campaign against CNN, BBC. There's been a campaign against Peter Hartcher, actually, from the Sydney Morning Herald, circulating in Thai networks globally. And I'm curious on your perspectives on the way Thai diplomats, Thai government engage in an international community based on this extraordinary anger towards Western commentary about the entire internal situation in ways that it hasn't occurred previously.
I have been aware, as I indicated, that there was sharp criticism of Peter Hartcher's article. And I have, in my own consultation of the web, been aware of some people being very vigorous defenders of both the King, although the King has done very little in the present, or nothing in the present situation, and of the government and of the yellow shirts. But I put it differently, that what I have been struck by in terms of international activity is the very strong pro-red shirt material that can be found internationally, with some very active figures like Giles Umpakorn, the son of Pui Umpakorn, the famous economist who was driven out of Thailand in 1973. Very active support for the red shirts as well. But I think to try and answer the question, which is the essentials, the question which you pose, this is seen by the various sides of the confrontation as a very big issue. I mean, if the red shirt position succeeds, many people who feel that they have the right to be part of a long-standing elite will no longer be in a position of power. And I think that's a very firm position that they see and worry about at the moment.
Elizabeth Carpenter, thank you very much for your overview, particularly to layperson. The Burma and the military dictatorship of Burma being so close to Thailand as it is, do you think that there's a warning there for us, if there should ever be here in Southeast Asia, a warning for us with the rise of the military in Thailand?
My very brief observation there would be that while I've already indicated that I think the army, unless it returns to the barracks, will continue to play an important part in Thai politics for the foreseeable future, that I don't, with the exception of Burma, see that as a consideration elsewhere. The interesting thing is to reflect on how important the army was in Indonesia for so many years, and yet because of a whole range of developments, it no longer has that importance anymore, although it's certainly not without significance within the Indonesian polity.
Thank you. Stephen Pringle. A very general question. How will these events affect Australia in terms of both doing business and, of course, government relations?
I haven't seen very much on Australian government comment about Thailand other than a hope that matters would be resolved peacefully, I think has been the essential commentary. On business more generally, rather than Australian business for the moment, from the point of view of the Thai economy, the events of March, April, May have had a dramatic effect on the tourist economy of Thailand, which represents something of the order of 7% of GDP. Whole hotels have been empty in Bangkok. Any of you who have a mental image of some of the hotels, the major hotels in Bangkok, not my small Swiss Lodge Hotel in Convent Road, somewhere like the Royal Orchid Sheraton, just like a morgue, nobody there. The lobby dark with a few lights on, but no activity whatsoever. The Dusit Thani shut down after it was hit by a grenade. This has had a dramatic effect on tourism and on convention business. The extent to which it's had an effect on Australian firms in relation to Thailand, I really don't know. There's not been much activity that has inhibited business up country, despite the fact that the north and the northeast have been where the bulk of the red shirt people have come from. I don't have any sense that that's impeded firms carrying out commercial or mining activities in those areas.
I thank you for your talk. I disagree with quite a lot of it, but I'm not going to dwell on that at the end of the question time. I really want to put you on the spot and ask you about your outlook for Thailand, not necessarily from the financial point of view, but given that there is a very deep division now within Thai society, and given the earlier question which indicated quite rightly, I think, that an election is in the near future anyway is probably not going to solve that problem. What is your outlook for the Thai society and Thailand functioning in the way it has in the past? Can that continue, or do you see ongoing strife with eruptions from time to time like we've just seen in the past few months?
A long time ago, I was formally trained as a historian, and I long ago learnt that historians are no better than anyone else at predicting the future. I return to something I said earlier about the role of the army. I think the army is going to determine the outlook for Thailand for some time to come, and until the army truly returns to the barracks, it will be a force outside of electoral politics that will be ready to intervene for what it continues to see both as its interests and the interests of the state. If I've sounded like a red shirt advocate, which was certainly not my intention, what I've tried to do is explain why they have the feelings they do. That is not to say that there aren't many very able people on all sides of Thai politics. But it's about time we stop thinking of Thailand as land of smiles. It's a country that has a very high homicide rate. Its politics, particularly before the 1997 constitution was brought in, was one in which godfathers ruled much of the country and engaged in considerable political violence. What we're seeing is an evolving Thai society, and I think the evolution has some way to go. It's undoubtedly true that if we want to put it in very blunt terms, the red shirts have lost the war. They've lost the battle, but I'm not at all sure that they've lost the war, just as I'm not entirely sure they're going to win.